Alton Towers in the UK holds the current rollercoaster record for most inversions. These 14 inversions though would drastically impact the future of the park with one tragic event. This is the story of the Smiler.
Join us. You belong to the Smiler.
The Smiler, the world's first 14-looping roller coaster. Book now at altontowers.com.
You are now starting your correctional process.
The Black Hole was added to Alton Towers in 1984. The new ride captured the imagination of guests visiting the park. Located in a large tent, it was the park's second major coaster. It was even dismantled and modified to fit coupled trains instead of single trains to increase capacity of the popular ride. In 1997 though, something big was coming to the area. Every ride from the zone was removed except for the Black Hole, and construction began on Secret Weapon 4.
Don't look down.
The first of two world's first coasters that would eventually end up in the zone. In addition, Energizer and Enterprise were added and the area was rethemed to X Sector. The brand new zone was to be themed to a sinister, futuristic government facility. In 2005, Black Hole closed due to health and safety changes and Alton not wanting to spend money to bring it up to code, and Oblivion stood by itself as the only roller coaster in the zone. That though would change. The Black Hole was finally removed in 2007, leaving the tent empty. It would feature Scarefest mazes in 2011 before it was removed in 2012.
They say the perfect gift's a smile, but here at the Smiler Shop TV, our gift is a smile. Smile. We have just the thing to help you spread the happiness to everyone you meet. They'll be thankful you have. After all, who wouldn't want to receive a gift from the Smiler?
Plans on what were coming were submitted in December 2011 and granted in March, despite the usual opposition the park gets. It would be Gus Lauer who would build a new roller coaster for the park. Secret Weapon 7 was the first Infinity coaster, a variant on the popular Eurofighter model such as saw the ride. It had been quite some time since Alton had received a real Secret Weapon thrill ride, with over 10 years since Secret Weapon 5 in 2002 Air. I don't really count Secret Weapon 6 as a thrill ride.
Well, that ride was a bit timid. At least it's time now to get off. Apparently, little jolt there. Okay, let's get up. Ah!
No, that doesn't count. Less than a month before permission was granted, a new website launched where you could input your information to get updates on the new ride. Secret Weapon 7 would feature 2 chain lifts, one being vertical, a drop of 98 feet, and the most inversions on any roller coaster in the whole world. At the time, the ride with the most inversions was also at a Merlin park, with 10 on Colossus at Fort Park, tied with 1 in China, and another park was rumoured to be working on an 11-loop ride. Alton didn't want to just beat that record, they wanted to smash it. The original brief called for 12 or more, and they came back with 14. Located on the site of the Black Hole, with 20 tons of soil removed from the site similar to Nemesis due to the tree line restrictions at the park. The new ride would cost £18 million and was squeezed into a very small footprint. It would be Alton Towers' longest roller coaster by track length. The track would be a very dark grey to fit the surrounding theme with a unique story. It was officially announced as the Smiler. A huge marketing campaign surrounded the upcoming attraction. Spray painting of the ride's logo, which resembles a smiling face, began to appear all over the park, and subliminal advertising appeared on different sections of the Alton Towers website. The logo began appearing all across the country, including billboards in London, train stations, and even projected onto buildings such as Big Ben. A selection of sheep flocks were also sprayed with the logo around the UK, which really got the media talking.
This week, we took the decision to paint sheep across the country to announce the name of our new world-first roller coaster, the Smiler.
That's what it's all about. Don't see me smiling.
I thought it was quite funny, actually.
I feel like I've had the wool pulled over my eyes.
Me too. I feel used.
Rubbish.
A countdown clock counted down to the ride's opening on the 16th of March 2013. On the very early plans which were discovered, 8 inversions were seen, with a dark tone, an industrial grunge-style station, and while the dimensions of the final result were the same, the theme was completely different. Original theming elements shown were a giant mechanical spider, which the ride would fly through the legs of, and while this was incorporated, this element was completely different to the originally planned X-Sector industrial theming seen on the early plans. A Smiler video game for mobile was released, and it had a much brighter theme.
Hello, my name is Dr. Kelman. I'm Chief of Medicine here at the Sanctuary. May I wish you all a very sincere welcome. By choosing the Sanctuary, you can rest assured you're in safe hands. After all, we are the market leader in social compliance treatment.
From before the ride's opening in 2012 through to 2014, Scarefest at the park featured a haunted maze themed to the ride located inside the iconic towers, which would introduce the ride story and introduce the world to the Ministry of Joy. This old facility allowed you to check yourself in for a checkup for those who were down or had lost their smile. This concept was called Marmalization and was developed by the secret group called the Ministry of Joy. 50 years ago, Dr. Kalman, the head of the project, used a team to experience on the mind and body for an increased social satisfaction, as they put it. This method, though, often led to disfigured subjects who had been caged away in the basement of the sanctuary, and that was the story of this haunted maze. And this maze was actually pretty good.
Each selected treatment accesses various parts of the body and of the mind in order to abolish any reoccurrence of any complaints. Welcome, my friends, to the Sanctuary.
In 2012, the Ministry had returned with new modern methods to save us from the tragedy known as sorrow. The first patient to be marmalized was Miles Cedars.
State your name, please.
Miles Cedars.
You do understand why you're here, don't you, Miles?
He was only halfway marmalized, but it worked, and they kept going and wanted to spread joy to many more. The centre of the Smiler ride features the Marmalizer, and you, the rider, were volunteering to take this experience. The different processes seen on the Marmalizer, the spider-like structure in the centre of the ride, are their inoculator, where a serum is injected into the patients by syringe to give them a boost of joy, the tickler, where you are simply tickled until you can't not smile, the flasher, where bright lights from above will blind and disorient the patient, the giggler, which used laughing gas to force you to laugh, and the hypnotizer, where swirling illusions were used to disorientate and mesmerize you.
Actually, Danny, can we have a look at these? Get them on camera. It says Miles Cedars tests.
Hey, stick him in your bag. No, seriously, stick him in the bag. They might be good for research or something.
What do you think? Right.
In January, the countdown time was removed and the opening of the ride was delayed, now planning to open in May 2013. To compensate for the delay, the park opened the Sanctuary Maze until mid-April. The official date for the opening was set as May 16, 2013. This wasn't met though due to delays in construction. The following day, a press event was held and a train stopped on the lift hill and riders were stuck for an hour before being evacuated. A new opening date of May 23rd was announced. The resort was booked out solid for the opening, and the hype of the new attraction was huge. Marketing was seen everywhere, and the world record looping roller coaster was about to open. Except, it wasn't. Less than 24 hours before opening, the resort announced it would not again be opening due to teething problems. Tickets were revalidated and the hotel stays were rebooked with no clue when it would actually open. Eventually, it did of course open on May 31st with no prior announcement at midday. The compact ride begins with a hidden inversion inside before entering the first lift hill, and directly after, a blur of inversions hit you for both halves of the ride. After its opening, the ride was closed multiple times due to technical issues. Twice within a week in early June, the train stalled during test runs during the ride's batwing element before the park opened. The following month, 48 people were evacuated from the ride after an item fell from a section of the track described by riders as a 1 foot long metal bar or some kind of bolt. It caused 2 sections of the track to disengage, creating a small gap. Shortly after, the ride was closed for 5 days after cracks were found in the base of one of the ride's supports. Later in the same year, 4 people were injured when they were struck by guide wheels that detached from the chain during the vertical lift hill. So as you can see, the opening year was quite troublesome. Unfortunately though, something more tragic was going to occur 2 years after opening that would severely damage the park's reputation, attendance and income, and seriously injure multiple people. As a word of warning, some of the following footage and information may be distressing.
It's dubbed the most terrifying roller coaster ride on Earth. This afternoon at 2:09, the terror became reality. 16 people were in the carriage which collided with an empty car on the Smiler roller coaster.
On a very windy day on June 2nd, 2015, the ride was operated as normal, even though winds had reached 46 miles per hour and it was suggested not to operate over 34 miles per hour. Shortly after 1 PM, the ride issued a warning light indicating a fault. Visitors on the ride were removed and engineers were called. At this point, the ride had been operating with 4 trains on the track. Staff had been told to add a 5th train due to the number of guests in the park and decided to do this while the ride was empty. While the 5th train was being added, employees sent an empty carriage around the track to check operation was normal. This empty train though failed to make it up the incline and a warning system was activated. Engineers successfully fixed this issue with the empty train. Due to a breakdown of communication, the engineers on site had not been told a 5th train had been added and began the process to restart the ride. With staff preparing to allow visitors back onto the ride, another empty train was sent around and failed to make the climb and roll back down the track and came to a rest in a valley. Operators on the ride were unaware the train was stuck on the track and the first car full of passengers was sent around the track. As it climbed the first lift hill, the ride system stopped it from moving ahead, indicating the track ahead was occupied as it was designed to do. The engineer, still not aware that 5 trains were on the track, checked the location of the 4 he believed were active and did not see the 5th train sat stalled on the track. He later stated he felt he was pressured to minimize downtime on rides. Along with a colleague, they overrode the safety warning and the train with passengers continued up the lift hill. This train then slammed into the stalled car, creating what some described as a horror scene similar to a 90 miles per hour car crash. As hundreds watched on in panic, the 2 cars rocked back and forth along the track with passengers at the front trapped between the crash barrier of the train. It took almost 20 minutes for the first 999 call to be made. The injured passengers sat trapped on the track for 4 to 5 hours before they were able to be released from the carriage, with some suffering from significant blood loss. The injuries resulted in leg amputations, shattered knees and punctured lungs.
If you think about how many theme parks there are in the world, and therefore how many thousands of people must ride on roller coasters every single day, well, statistically, incidents like this are very rare indeed. But Alton Towers has said that this accident is the worst in its history.
This tragic accident changed the lives of 16 people riding the train forever. Right after the incident, the Smiler, Saw the Ride and 2 other roller coasters at Chessington World of Adventure were closed while investigations got underway. Alton Towers was closed completely for 5 days as a result. After this, the Smiler remained closed while the other Merlin Parks rides were reopened.
I'm Neil Craig. I'm HSE's Head of Operations for the Midlands. When people visit theme parks, they should be able to enjoy themselves safely. On 2nd of June last year, Merlin Attractions Operations Limited failed to protect their customers. They let them badly down. It is right that they've been held to account for those failings in a criminal court.
Merlin were fined £5 million for a failure of health and safety rules over the crash. They also rejected the idea that they had put pressure on employees to keep downtime to a minimum over safety. The impact of this crash would affect the resort drastically, and even to this day they work to recover. Attendance plummeted after the incident, and Alton reported a $14 million drop in revenue as a result of the crash. Multiple rides were closed in relation to the revenue loss, and investment into the park reached a new low. New safety measures were introduced, and compensation claims still continue to be assessed.
Throughout the last 16 months, we have been very aware that we would end up here today facing a substantial penalty, and that has now been delivered. However, what I would like to say is that Alton Towers, and indeed the wider Merlin Group, are not emotionless corporate entities. They're made up of human beings who care passionately about what they do. And in that respect, the far bigger punishment for all of us is the knowledge that on this occasion we let people down with such devastating consequences. It is something none of us will ever forget, and it is something we are utterly determined will never be repeated.
Nobody set out to hurt somebody that tragic day, but the impossible had happened. The Smiler did reopen in March 2016 with new safety checks and all references to correction and marmalisation removed. Many people still remain cautious to ride the attraction, but no further incidents have occurred since. The Smiler crash was not only foul in every aspect of the business, but also with the employees who called the park home, as well as the passengers who were injured, and continues to be a devastating day that the park has been working hard to put behind them. For many though, it will never be forgotten, and is sadly what this record-breaking ride is now known for. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to join us on future expeditions, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram for updates on where we are heading next. A special thank you to our Patreons for supporting the channel. Take a look if you would like to get early releases on upcoming videos. Have you been on the Smiler, and does the crash impact how you feel about the resort? Let me know in the comments below, and we will see you next time.